So, for you to be listening to this deep dive right now, your ancestors had to, well, basically win a genetic lottery. And the odds of that are, they're estimated by some geneticists at roughly 1 in 10 to the 2.6 millionth power.
Right, which is just an absurd number.
It totally is. Like, to put that completely incomprehensible figure into perspective, physicists estimate there were only 10 to the 80th atoms in the entire observable universe.
Yeah, 10 to the 80th, which is, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction compared to the odds of your specific existence.
Exactly. So, statistically speaking, you are an absolute impossibility. Like, you shouldn't be here.
We really shouldn't. We navigate our days treating our existence as, like, a baseline assumption, right? We just treat our presence as a given.
Yeah, we just wake up and assume we're supposed to be here.
Exactly. But when you systematically map out the biological and mathematical variables that are actually required to produce your specific consciousness, the baseline reality is that none of us should have made the cut.
It's wild to think about. And that's really what today's deep dive is all about. We're centering on this really fascinating piece titled The Grand Improbability of Being.
Specifically, the author's philosophically refined version of the text.
Right. And our mission here today is, well, it's far more ambitious than just marveling at some astronomical numbers.
Oh, absolutely. The math is just the starting point.
Yeah, because we are unpacking the staggering mathematics of human existence, sure, but we're also tracing that unbroken biological chain that resulted in you, the listener.
And ultimately, the source text uses all this data to, completely reframe how we view meaning, mortality, and just our overall purpose.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because grasping the sheer unlikeliness of our emergence, it provides the bedrock for a really profound philosophical worldview, doesn't it?
It really does. It strips away all those anthropocentric assumptions we have. It forces us to look at our place in the cosmos through this lens of pure contingency.
Pure contingency. That's a great way to put it. So let's get into the text. It anchors this whole exploration with a statistic that sounds, honestly, incredibly massive until you start calculating the denominator.
Right. The numerator seems huge at first.
Yeah. So demographers estimate that roughly 1.7 times 10 to the 11th power human beings have ever lived.
So that's about 117 billion realized human lives.
117 billion.
Yeah. And that encompasses every single individual who has ever, formed a memory, contributed to a culture, or passed on genetic material throughout the entire history of Homo sapiens.
Which is, from a sociological standpoint, that represents an almost paralyzing volume of human experience.
Right.
And suffering and joy.
It's an ocean of human history. But, and this is where the text gets really interesting, it immediately flips that perspective.
Right. It argues that the 117 billion becomes like a trivial rounding error.
Exactly. A rounding error when you juxtapose it with the immeasurable space of possible people who never existed.
The people who never existed. The text refers to these as configurations of genes, histories, and identities that remain purely hypothetical.
Yeah, the hypothetical space. And we aren't just talking about abstract ghosts here,
No, we're talking about the hard mathematics of it, like meiosis and chromosomal crossover.
Exactly. The combinatorial explosion happening right down at the cellular level is just staggering. During meiosis, human cells divide to produce gametes, so sperm and egg cells.
Okay, let's break that down for the listener, because humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, right?
An independent assortment alone dictates that a single individual can produce 2 to the 23rd power different gametes.
Wow. And what is that number, practically speaking?
That is over 8.3 million unique combinations from just one person.
8.3 million, and that's before we even factor in genetic recombination, isn't it?
Precisely. That's just the baseline shuffling. Chromosomal crossover is where homologous chromosomes actually exchange segments of DNA before they even divide.
So they're physically swapping genetic material to create entirely new sequence combinations.
Yeah, entirely new. So when you multiply the potential gametes of two parents, and then you factor in that crossover plus baseline mutation rates,
math gets crazy.
It does. A single human couple could theoretically produce roughly 70 trillion genetically unique zygotes.
70 trillion. From just two people.
Just two people.
That is, 70 trillion unique genetic configurations. When you scale that up across the millions of generations of hominid evolution, the pool of the hypothetical is just.
It dwarfs the observable universe.
It really does. The people who had the mathematical potential to exist but didn't.
Yeah.
I was thinking about an analogy for this. Like, If the 117 billion realized humans who have ever lived represent a single microscopic grain of sand,
Oh, I like this.
then the unrealized hypothetical humans make up the entire Sahara Desert.
That Sahara Desert analogy is, it's really apt for visualizing the sheer volume of it, but the source text actually pushes us further.
Right, into what it turns a philosophical naturalism standpoint.
Exactly, and it applies 3 very deliberate adjectives to your specific realized existence.
Okay, what are they?
It says your existence is not guaranteed, it is not intended, and it is not necessary.
Not guaranteed, not intended, not necessary. It is strictly contingent.
Contingent, yes. And, contingency in evolutionary biology basically means the outcome is utterly dependent on a highly specific sequence of preceding historical events.
Like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly. Stephen Jay Gould, the paleontologist, he famously explored this with his tape of life thought experiment.
Oh, right. The tape of life. I remember reading about that.
Yeah, so the idea is if you rewind the tape of biological history back a few 100 million years and just let it play again.
The resulting ecosystem would look completely different.
Completely different. Humans wouldn't be here. The unbroken chain of survival stretching back billions of years is just terrifyingly fragile.
Terrifyingly fragile is the perfect way to phrase it. Because the text emphasizes that every single one of your ancestors had to live long enough to reproduce.
Every single one.
Let's examine the mechanical hurdles of that chain. Because we are talking about surviving like the KT extinction event, the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs.
Right. Your little mammalian ancestor had to survive the ash and the cold.
Yeah. And we are talking about surviving the Toba supervolcano bottleneck, too.
Yeah.
I mean, during that event, the global human population may have dwindled to just a few thousand individuals.
It's incredible we made it through that. But beyond those massive macro environmental pressures, there's also the microscopic contingency.
A lot of day-to-day survival stuff.
Exactly. Every single reproductive event in your entire lineage required selecting one specific gamete out of millions.
So it's not just that they survived, but they had to mate at the exact right millisecond.
Yes. If a predator had turned left instead of right, say, 3 million years ago.
Just one random turn.
It's just one. It alters the exact millisecond in early hominid mates. A different sperm fertilizes the egg. The genetic lineage shifts slightly.
Wow.
And over 1 million years, that microdeviation compounds, and you are entirely erased from the timeline.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back on this a little bit on behalf of the listener, because this heavy reliance on chance, let's look at it through the lens of deterministic physics.
Okay, determinism. Let's go there.
Right. So if we accept the principles of macrocausality, the idea of Laplace's demon.
A superintellect that knows the position of every atom.
Exactly. If this superintellect knows the precise location and momentum of every atom in the universe, it could perfectly calculate the future. So wasn't my existence technically guaranteed from the exact moment of the Big Bang?
That's the classic determinist argument.
Right. So why are we calling it an astronomical improbability if the dominoes were always set to fall exactly this way?
That is a highly sophisticated challenge, I'll give you that. It cuts right to the heart of the determinism debate. But the pure chance described in the source text doesn't necessarily violate physical causality.
It doesn't.
No. Rather, it highlights the macroscopic amplification of quantum noise and, well, chaos theory.
Chaos theory. Okay, break that down for me.
So, biological systems are highly nonlinear. Even incredibly small fluctuations at the quantum level can cascade. Imagine a cosmic ray mutating a specific nucleotide in a DNA sequence.
Which happens all the time.
Right. That tiny quantum event alters an organism's survival fitness, which cascades upward into massive evolutionary divergence.
Oh, I see. So even if the universe is deterministic on some grand theoretical scale, from the perspective of any biological organism,
variables are so infinitely complex.
right, they're so sensitive to initial conditions that the outcome functions identically to pure randomness.
Exactly. It operates like randomness to us.
Right.
But our intuition totally rebels against this, doesn't
Oh,
it?
completely. We want to feel special.
We do. We look back at an unbroken chain of billions of years of survival, and this huge retrospective bias kicks in.
Because we are standing at the end of the chain.
Exactly. Because we're here, the path looks like a brilliantly illuminated, inevitable road of destiny.
It's like we fall into the trap of analyzing an ink splatter.
ink splatter.
Yeah, think about it. If you drop a vial of ink onto a canvas, it creates this highly complex, jagged, asymmetric splatter, right?
Sure.
You could zoom in and trace the microscopic edges of that splatter and argue, well, the fluid dynamics required to create this exact shape are so mathematically complex, it must have been designed.
It wasn't designed.
Exactly. It wasn't designed at all. It is just the shape that happened to fall.
That's a brilliant analogy. We are the shape that happened to fall.
Just a random splatter of biology.
And, acknowledging that our biological emergence is an artifact of chaotic fluid dynamics rather than some pre-written destiny, it leads the soil text to a really startling conclusion.
A conclusion regarding a topic that is deeply ingrained in human psychology, right? Mortality.
Yes, we're tough.
The deep dive takes a really sharp turn here. The text introduces a quote from the evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, and he says, "We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones."
The lucky ones.
Yeah, on its face, that is a jarring paradox. I mean, human culture, medicine, religion, they're all largely organized around the mitigation or the denial of death.
We spend our whole lives running from it. So to resolve Dawkins' paradox, we actually have to refer back to the Sahara Desert of the hypothetical that you mentioned earlier.
The 70 trillion unrealized humans.
Exactly, because the fundamental prerequisite for mortality is existence.
Right.
The non-existent cannot die.
Whoa. Okay, so the ghosts of the unborn, those 70 trillion unique zygotes per couple that never materialized.
They never have to face cellular degradation. They never face disease or the cessation of consciousness.
They are completely spared the trauma of dying.
They are. But they are also categorically barred from experiencing the localized pocket of negentropy that we call life.
Gentropy, right, the order out of chaos. So
Yeah.
death is actually the absolute, irrefutable receipt proving that you were pulled from the infinite void of the hypothetical.
Yes. The very capacity to lose your life is the ultimate proof that you won the astronomical lottery required to possess it in the first place.
That reframing, I mean, that completely cannibalizes the traditional dread of mortality.
It really takes the sting out of it, doesn't it?
It does. The source text suggests that calling our existence unlikely is honestly a failure of language.
It's too weak of a word.
Way too weak. It's so astronomically improbable that the mere fact we can die should be viewed as an elite privilege.
An elite privilege, because the unfathomably many potential lives, those hypothetical genetic configurations, they will never grieve or age, sure, but they will also never process the visual spectrum of a sunset.
Right. They'll never synthesize dopamine.
They'll never comprehend their own place in the universe. They never get to just be.
I want the listener to just think about the friction of daily life for a moment. Because we all get bogged down, right? You endure a grueling commute, you navigate bureaucratic red tape at work,
The daily grind.
you experience the physical sensation of a headache, or maybe the emotional sting of a rejected proposal. But through the lens of this text, every single one of those neurological signals, even the painful ones, is an extreme luxury.
They are the exclusive privileges of the existing.
Yeah.
I mean, the hypothetical people in the void, they do not possess a central nervous system to experience the frustration of a traffic jam.
Right. So even sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic is a miracle.
The capacity to feel frustration is a biological miracle. It really is.
This establishes such a heavy foundation for the rest of the deep dive. We are the result of staggering mathematical contingency, and our mortality is a marker of profound luck.
But this leads us right into a central philosophical vacuum, doesn't it?
Exactly. If our existence is not intended, not guaranteed, and not necessary, what is the point?
Right. Why are we here? Which brings us to what the text calls the philosophical crux.
The crux. So the text delivers this really potent thesis, and I want to quote it directly here. It says, "Your existence is not meaningful because it was destined. It is meaningful because it was not."
That is so powerful. Let's deconstruct that a bit, because human neurobiology is essentially a pattern recognition engine.
We look for patterns everywhere.
Everywhere. And we are hardwired to seek teleology.
Teleology. Okay, define that for us.
Teleology is basically the explanation of phenomena by the purpose they serve rather than by postulated causes. So we deeply want to believe our lives are governed by an overarching script.
We want a destiny.
We crave it. Teleological thinking provides immense psychological comfort. The idea of destiny implies that an external architecture guarantees our value.
Like the universe has a plan for me.
Exactly. But the text challenges the intrinsic worth of a guaranteed outcome.
How so?
Well, think about it. If a script is pre-written and an outcome is absolutely necessary, then the occurrence of that event is mechanistically unremarkable.
Unremarkable, because it couldn't have happened any other way.
Right, it was forced to happen.
I see. So the value of an object or an event is deeply intertwined with its rarity and the
Yeah.
unpredictable forces that shaped it.
Yes.
Okay, consider the physical dynamics of sea glass. Have you ever gone walking on a beach and found sea glass?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So when you find a perfectly frosted, smooth piece of blue sea glass on the shoreline, it holds a specific aesthetic and emotional value, right? You want to pick it up, you want to keep it.
Yeah, it feels special.
But if you were handed a piece of mass-produced frosted glass from a factory manufactured in identical batches of 10,000, the value just completely evaporates.
Because the factory glass is an intended guaranteed outcome.
Exactly. It was destined to look like that. The sea glass is valuable entirely because of the chaotic entropy that created it.
All the random forces.
Yeah. A specific silica lattice had to be shattered against a rocky outcropping somewhere. And then those fragments had to be subjected to decades of tidal kinetic energy,
Grinding against the sand and rocks.
grinding against pulverized quartz and coral. Millions of random fluid dynamic variables had to align to deposit that specific piece of glass at the exact coordinate you were walking,
Right at that moment.
right before the next wave cycle reclaimed it. The sheer unlikeliness of its formation is the source of its worth.
And the text posits that you, the listener, are the biological equivalent of that sea glass.
I love that. We are human sea glass.
You were not manufactured in a teleological factory to fulfill some predetermined cosmic quota. You were shaped by the unguided, chaotic waves of deep time and evolutionary pressure.
Wow.
So your value is derived not from a guarantee, but from the fact that you are the miraculous exception to the rule of non-existence.
But, if we accept that there is no pre-written script, that our meaning is derived entirely from chaos, we run headfirst into a massive psychological dilemma.
We do, because human psychology abhors a vacuum.
Right. If the universe doesn't provide a script for us, we are forced into a corner where we have to write it ourselves.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people.
It really is. And this transitions directly into the source material's exploration of existentialism.
The text explicitly states that the improbability of your existence does not impose a cosmic purpose on you. Instead, it grants you the freedom and the burden to create your own.
The freedom and the burden.
Yeah. This duality is basically the cornerstone of existentialist thought, particularly the frameworks developed by philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre.
Sartre. Okay, let's examine Sartre's concept of radical freedom here. Because the text frames the absence of destiny as a liberation, right?
It does. Sartre argued that existence precedes essence.
Existence precedes essence. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, think about a manufactured object, like a hammer.
Okay, a hammer.
The essence of the hammer, its purpose, to hit nails, is conceived before it is created. The idea of the hammer precedes its physical existence.
Right, the manufacturer knew what it was for before they made it.
Exactly. But for human beings, Sartre argues it's the other way around. We first appear in the world. We exist. And only afterward do we define our essence.
So there is no predetermined human nature.
No cosmic mandate dictating what you ought to do. You are a blank slate.
That actually liberates the listener from the paralyzing anxiety of the wrong path, doesn't it?
It really does. Culturally, we obsess over discovering our singular, destined calling.
Oh, constantly. What is my purpose? What was I meant to do? The language we use implies purpose is like an objective artifact buried in the yard.
Like a treasure chest.
Yeah. And if we don't dig in the exact right spot, we waste our entire lives.
Which is exhausting. But the existentialist view annihilates that anxiety. There is no hidden artifact in the yard. You can't dig in the wrong spot because there's nothing buried there.
That's a huge relief.
Yeah.
But this radical freedom introduces an equally terrifying concept, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. What Sartre termed mauvaise foi, or bad faith.
Bad faith. Let's unpack that.
Bad faith is basically the self-deception we engage in when we pretend we are not free. It's when we blame our circumstances or our genetics or some fictitious destiny for our choices.
Like saying, I'm just wired this way, or it wasn't meant to be.
Exactly. We adopt bad faith because the alternative is shouldering the absolute burden of our own lives.
Right. If the universe didn't write the script, then the responsibility of architecting a meaningful existence falls 100% on the individual consciousness.
You cannot outsource your purpose to a cosmic management team.
I love that phrase. The cosmic management team. Sartre famously declared that man is condemned to be free.
Condemned to be free. It's such a heavy way to look at it, but it's accurate. You are thrown into this highly improbable biological reality without your consent, and you are entirely accountable for how you assign value to it.
It shifts the entire paradigm from finding a purpose to building one.
Building. Active construction?
Yeah. You look at the chaotic, unguided reality of your life, and you actively architect meaning. You decide that cultivating a relationship or solving a specific engineering problem or simply maintaining your own psychological well-being. You decide that is your defined purpose for the day.
It is a profound responsibility, but, as the text suggests, it is a burden only the living are privileged enough to carry.
Going back to the hypothetical void again.
Exactly. The hypothetical entities in the void, they don't have to grapple with existential dread, but they also cannot architect love or meaning or art.
So the dread is the cost of entry.
It's the cover charge for existence.
This entire discourse raises an almost meta-philosophical question for me. I mean, we are a collection of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, right?
Stardust?
Literal stardust, assembled by millions of years of evolutionary pressure, currently utilizing vibrating vocal cords to discuss the statistical impossibility of our own assembly.
It is a bit mind-bending when you say it out loud.
It is. How is the universe even capable of reflecting upon its own improbability?
Well, that mechanism of self-reflection introduces the final analytical framework from the source text, which is anthropic reasoning.
Anthropic reasoning. The text notes. From the perspective of anthropic reasoning, you can reflect on this improbability only because you are one of the rare configurations that actually came to be.
Yes. And this touches on the weak anthropic principle in cosmology and physics.
Okay, tell us about the weak anthropic principle.
So we often look at the fine-tuning of the universe, like the precise strength of the strong nuclear force or the exact ratio of the electromagnetic force to gravity.
Right, the fundamental constants of physics.
And we marvel that if these constants were altered by just a fraction of a percent, biological life would be completely impossible. Stars wouldn't form, carbon wouldn't bond.
The universe seems, well, suspiciously optimized for our existence.
It does seem that way. But the anthropic principle applies a strict selection bias to that observation.
A selection bias. How so?
Well, the only type of universe capable of supporting conscious observers who can ask questions about fine-tuning is, by definition, a universe that is fine-tuned.
Ah, I see.
The billions of dead hypothetical universes with collapsed physical laws, they don't contain astrophysicists.
They don't have podcasts.
Exactly. No one is there to notice the laws failed. It's the ultimate survivorship bias.
It reminds me of a lottery. If you buy a ticket in a lottery with 1 in a trillion odds and you actually win, you might stand there and assume divine intervention, right?
You'd think I was chosen.
Exactly. But the anthropic logic states that the only person capable of holding a press conference to discuss the miracle of winning is the winner. The trillion losers aren't observing this statistical anomaly.
They're just ripping up their tickets.
Right. So we are the biological lottery winners.
We are. We are looking back at the gauntlet of evolution, the mass extinctions, the microscopic gamete selections, and we're marveling at the unlikeliness of it all.
But our ability to marvel is fundamentally predicated on our survival.
Yes. We are a localized pocket of order. Think of it like a temporary eddy in the chaotic, rushing river of the cosmos.
A temporary eddy, that's a beautiful image. But the eddy wasn't designed by the river, was it?
No, it's just an emergent property of the fluid dynamics.
It exists temporarily, maintaining its structure against the flow of entropy before eventually dissolving back into the current.
And the source text synthesizes this reality into a remarkably stoic yet beautiful conclusion. It says, "The universe did not need you, but it contains you." And that is enough to make your life philosophically extraordinary.
The universe did not need you, but it contains you. That juxtaposition is really the gravitational center of this entire deep dive.
It really is.
I mean, the universe operated for roughly 13.8 billion years without you. It synthesized heavy elements in the cores of dying stars. It formed planetary accretion disks and managed tectonic shifts in a state of absolute blind indifference.
Completely oblivious to our eventual arrival.
Right. It possessed no teleological void that required your specific consciousness to fill it.
And the indifference of the cosmos is so often framed as a source of nihilism. Like, the universe doesn't care, so nothing matters.
But the text flips that completely.
It does. Because despite that crushing mechanical indifference, out of the blind chaos emerged a configuration of matter capable of subjective experience.
Capable of joy and suffering and curiosity.
You are the universe processing its own existence. You are the universe waking up and looking around.
Which makes us extraordinary. Not because we have some predetermined cosmic mandate to achieve greatness, but simply because we maintained our structure against the flow of entropy long enough to experience being alive.
That is the core takeaway. We have charted the biological and mathematical realities that prove you are not a guaranteed outcome.
We've unpacked the paradox that the very capacity to die is the ultimate receipt of your existence.
And we have explored the existential mandate to build your own purpose in the absence of a pre-written destiny.
Which leaves us with the practical application of this knowledge. Because, the timeline of historical contingency doesn't just terminate with your arrival.
No, the unbroken chain of survival continues forward. The tape is still playing.
The variables are still in motion. And this is the final thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. Think about this. If your existence is the culmination of an unbroken biological chain stretching back billions of years, and your purpose is entirely yours to architect, how does that shift the physics of your daily decisions?
Because right now, the dynamic flips.
Yes, because in this exact moment, you are transitioning from the result of contingency to the cause of it.
You're no longer just the product of history. You're writing the next line of code.
Through your actions, your consumption, your hostility, or your kindness, you are actively becoming the environmental pressure.
You are the macro-causality determining the survival and the architecture of the next chain of hypothetical futures.
You are the physical variable shaping the next configuration of existence. You are the ancestor to the future's contingency.
The butterfly flapping its wings.
Exactly. So step away from the abstract math for a moment and just ground yourself in the physical reality of right now. Process the photons hitting your retinas. Acknowledge the neural pathways firing in your brain.
You made it. You're here.
You are the localized eddy in the river of entropy. You are an absolute staggering statistical impossibility. So embrace the burden of your radical freedom. Build something deliberate out of the chaos, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.